Good morning, good morning, good morning. And welcome to Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Forum. I am Laura McClady, one of your facilitators, along with Winston Robinson, our young entrepreneur and star up and coming in Charlotte, Mecklenburg.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
Jackie Edwards Walton, along with Mary Johnson, who's not with us this morning, and Sarita Sherrill, who's not with us this morning. And Carlenia Ivory Canty is one of our facilitators as well. We also have Miss Natalie McElrath, who is our timekeeper. Please respect her. She will share with you the time that you have. We will allow you, since we have 4 of you this morning, it's going to be on our panel. We will allow you, she'll tell you how much time that you have for each one of you to speak. And keep in mind, for those who don't know it, we do video, we have live streaming and Facebook Live as well. We also have Dr. Thomas Moore, who you all have been ingratiated with his music. And of course, Steve Justin, who is one of our key figures because he makes sure that you get your invitations, send the information out. And we have Shay that is joining our crew as facilitators of the church. So we have a movie here that's assisting us with the technology piece. Have I missed anything with our introduction? Okay, so Justin, do we have anyone here for the very first time?
Always a great bird.
Okay, so you all know the drill. Okay, Jackie, you want to lead us in a word of prayer? Oh, Doug, thank you. Oh, Doug, we're so happy to have you back.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to gather together to discuss philanthropy and to discuss our community and how we can make a difference for it. Thank you for bringing us all together. Thank you for the discussion that we will have. Bless the hearts that are gathered together, that we may go forth and serve you and do thy deed, thy will. In the name of your Son, we pray. Amen.
Amen. I'd like to say that it's exciting for us to have Ms. Fullwood back again with us, and she visits with us ever so often. But what she shares and her colleagues or the people that are with her this morning is very important to our community, and we're grateful that she continues to come and share her time with us. Just as information, for those that are here for the first time and don't remember, we do send out invitations to over 1,200 people about the Tuesday Forum. We never know who will be attending, but we know we have an audience live with the live streaming and Facebook Live. And we also have people that do attend, but they come in respectfully and leave respectfully. And hopefully my phone won't go off because I haven't put it off yet, but we do have that rule, time of silence, where you turn your phones off. So you all probably know our processes. We allow you to speak, and once you speak, we have questions that may be asked, and those that ask questions, we facilitate the question and answer session. So without any further ado, I'd like to ask Ms. Fullwood if she would start and make sure, and I'm trying to do the right thing, but make sure you talk closely in the mic so that viewing audience can hear you. So that being said, we would welcome you, thank you, and you can go ahead, Ms. Fullwood.
All right, is the mic on?
Should be a green light. Slide it.
Got it. And just want to double check on time because the 4 of us kind of have our presentation split among us.
So don't do your presentation. I know you have it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here and always want to remind people that August is Black Philanthropy Month, so it's fitting that we're here at the Sarah Stevenson Forum this morning in celebration of Black philanthropy. And for anybody that's unaware, Black Philanthropy Month is a global celebration of Afro-descendant giving in all its forms. It's an opportunity to celebrate Black donors, givers, to give back and support Black-led and Black benefiting nonprofits in our communities, and to promote funding equity. Also want to let folks know, and I'll ask if you can advance the slide.
Just say that.
Yes,
Right. Thank you.
I shall. So yes, it's Black Philanthropy Month, and on August 28th, if there's one thing I ask you to do today is make a note of Wednesday, August 28th. It's known as CLT Gives Black. It's a dedicated day to give back to Black funded, Black led, Black benefiting nonprofits in Charlotte, and a way to elevate and promote racial funding equity. CLT Gives Black is a response to gross funding inequities. Nationally, it's known as Give 828, and our local campaign is part of a national movement to celebrate and elevate Black nonprofits that are on the front lines of our community, addressing community needs, but often off the radar of funders and donors in our community. So we want to spotlight and elevate them. If you can advance the slide. It's part of our program as members of NGAP, or New Generation of African American Philanthropists. You can advance the slide. There's a QR code on the screen where you can go to our page, CLT Gives Black, and be prepared for August 28th, when you can find one of the many nonprofits serving Charlotte-Mecklenburg and choose one that or more that you want to give to that day financially. So please make that commitment. Please spread the word. We've got about a week to further elevate and promote CLT Gives Black. We choose August 28th for a significant reason. It's because of its historical and cultural relevance. You didn't know, August 28th has been a pivotal date. In 1833, it's when Slavery Abolition Act was passed in the UK and freed enslaved people in the British colonies. In 1955, during the Jim Crow era, also known as America's racial apartheid, is when Emmett Till was killed. August 28, 1963 is when MLK delivered the iconic I Have a Dream speech. 2005 is when Hurricane Katrina reached Category 5 status and ultimately led to the flooding, destruction, and death in New Orleans when the levees broke. In 2008 is when Barack Obama accepted the Democratic nomination for president. And in 2024 in Charlotte is when we'll make history in terms of the resources and dollars going in support of Black-led, Black-founded nonprofits in Charlotte. So let's keep it going, y'all. So a little bit about NGAP. Next slide. As I mentioned, it's New Generation of African American Philanthropists. NGAP is a volunteer-led and volunteer-driven philanthropic collective, or a giving circle, made up of individuals who come together to offer time, talent, treasure, ties to the community, our truth and testimony. We supersize the 3 T's to strengthen Black communities of Charlotte and beyond. NGAP reclaims the root meaning of philanthropy. And what's that, y'all? What's the root meaning? Love. That is right. Some people think it's how many zeros behind the dollar signs, but that's not what philanthropy is. It's deeper than your pockets. Don't forget that. And we lift that up as a circle, and we use our giving and strategic action to benefit the community. NGAP proudly for Charlotteans is one of the largest running and most prominent Black giving circles in the country. We've been around 18 years, and from the get-go, our vision has been a healthy, safe, and prosperous community for Black families to live, work, and flourish. And we've been at that for 18 years, which still blows my mind to this day that it's been that long. About our work, we have three main areas of work. One is grant making and distributing dollars and resources to Black-led nonprofits serving Charlotte. We also connect and convene. We bring together donors, leaders, funders, to connect, to build relationships, to learn together, to take on action together, to collaborate. And then third, we're innovators, we're thought leaders. We introduce new ideas to Charlotte, case in point, Philanthropic Collective, the Black Giving Circle. We introduced Black Philanthropy Month to Charlotte. I'm proud to be one of the former co-architects of global celebrations of Black Philanthropy Month, and all along, NGAP has been central in setting the template for how cities across the country celebrate this month and address issues of inequities and inspire people, Black people, all people, to give and support, to create change, lead change in our communities. We are proud to be part of the community. We are comprised of everyday people who want to see change, who want to give back, who lift up traditions of Black giving. I always like to make this point. When we talk about Black philanthropy, we're not just talking about Black people writing checks or Black people being philanthropic. It's deeper than that. Just like soul food isn't just a Black person cooking. I mean, it's born of traditions and seasonings and history and family. And so is the case with Black philanthropy. It's a set of values, beliefs, ways of giving, largely shaped by our history in this country and the extraction of wealth, more often than not, from our communities, that we've had to be amazingly creative and inventive in how we support and lead change and create a society here in America. So, new generation of African American philanthropists doesn't speak to a specific age category. It's more of a new wave of Black givers born of traditions of our ancestors and elders that we are sustaining, and we're inviting other Black Charlotteans and even non-Black Charlotteans to give Black, which means centering love, connection to community, trust, relationships to have an impact along with the dollars that we give. And so in that respect, I'm gonna pause and pass the mic to one of our grantee partners who represents our work on the ground here in Charlotte. You can go to the next slide. So I want to invite Sharice Blackman of Charlotte Community Land Trust to speak a bit about her experience with NGAP and our role in the community.
Thank you, Valaida. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Sharice Blackman, the Executive Director of the Westside Community Land Trust here in Charlotte. And I was asked to share about the significance and critical nature of the support that NGAP provides. And I wanted to start by sharing a little bit of our origin story. So many of you know, some of you may not know, that our organization was actually founded by neighbors who live in West Charlotte communities who wanted to combat gentrification and displacement. And when I say neighbors, I mean we literally were founded in an Enderley Park living room by a group of Black and brown people and Black aligned people who wanted to ensure that residents within their community had staying power. These are people that have experienced urban renewal, have been affected by redlining, and are now experiencing the effects of gentrification and displacement. And so they believed in their own agency, they believed in their own ability to find a solution. They organized themselves and they formed into what is now known as Westside CLT. And when I was hired on a year after they were founded, what was visibly apparent was that our local economy didn't necessarily see the credibility or the viability of these Black resident experts and what they were able to offer. So people did not think the land trust would be able to survive. They did not think that we would be able to implement and deliver on what we were saying we would deliver on. And so at that point, we didn't have much funding, we didn't have any houses, we didn't have any land, we didn't have any support. But we also needed, in that moment, an opportunity, just an opportunity to demonstrate what was possible. And it's funders like NGAP that gave us that opportunity. It's funders like Knight Foundation with Charles Thomas. That's actually how we were introduced to NGAP. They were bold, they were courageous. Valaida spoke about the ingenuity of Black people that we know has existed since the beginning of time. And so we've seen that as a part of the land trust, and we have been able to grow exponentially because of the courage and the strength and the fortitude of groups like NGAP that created an opportunity where there was not one. As I mentioned before, our organization didn't have any homes. We were just a concept. We were a vision. We were an acorn. Before you see an oak tree, there's always that seed, that acorn, and that's where we were. And a lot of times people do not want to invest in the acorn because it's not proven. We don't know if the tree is going to live, if it's going to thrive, if it's even going to grow. But again, groups like NGAP, Knight Foundation, Charles Thomas, and then even through our presentation to NGAP, we were introduced to other funders. One of our largest bank funders, which is Fifth Third Bank, Jada, is a part of NGAP. And so outside of just the funding and the capital, us to grow as an organization, we also were given the opportunity to build connections, build relationships, have a supportive family-like safe space to thrive, where we could have what we needed to be a successful organization, which we knew from the forefront we would be. And so now I think when we met Valaida, NGAP, Charles, Fifth Third, we had a 6-figure budget, we had no homes, we had no land, and now through their support and through this habitus of connectivity, we have been able to produce over 161 permanently affordable homes. We've been able to bank a portfolio of 52 plus properties. We now have homeowners and we have an 8-figure budget. And all of that happened for an organization that was not seen as viable when it was in its seed form, but was given the opportunity through NGAP and through Black and Brown and funders and Black aligned investors that gave us that opportunity, and we'll forever be grateful for that.
Thank you so much, Sharice. And I've been remiss because in addition to the 4 or at least 3 of us who are members of NGAP here at the panel, we also have members of NGAP in the audience. Will you guys stand? Doug? Thank y'all for coming out this morning. Again, we're a collective. We currently have nearly 80 members, which is pretty phenomenal, and continue to grow and have some big visions ahead. In fact, in our 18th year, we're preparing for our 20th, and we recognize over these years that there's a huge opportunity. I might even say a vacuum in Charlotte in terms of Black philanthropic leadership and infrastructure. NGAP is volunteer-led and driven, and as we see some of the funding inequities that exist and some of the opportunities that exist in our community, we recognize we really need a more solid base of support. We need to become our own independent, standalone philanthropic entity. So we're currently a fund hosted by Foundation for the Carolinas. And we see an opportunity as we pass our 20th year milestone to become Charlotte's first, in fact, the Carolinas' first Black foundation or fund in advancing racial equity here in Charlotte. So we're making some big moves toward that. Our vision is what we call the new trust. built with and for Black communities. And I want to invite fellow member Jarrell Harvey to speak about some of this work. We've just launched a campaign, fundraising campaign, a campaign to raise awareness, to build civic and cultural pride, and to raise some dollars to establish the new trust. So, Jarrell.
Good morning. As Valaida mentioned, my name is Jarrell Harvey. I've been a member of NGAP since 2013. And as Valaida mentioned, we have been around for 18 years. As we approach our 20th anniversary, it's time for us to evolve. Evolution and growth is a part of the process. And so as we start the process of building a standalone independent entity, we are in now what we call the discovery phase. And so we have developed a team of roughly 10 members, and we have divided those 10 members up into 3 different groups, okay? That can continue to expand the work that we do. And so we really want to continue to how we focus on our 3 pillars, which again was grant making, civic engagement, and thought leadership. And so for our discovery phase, we have divided the team into 3 subgroups. So one team is focusing on national philanthropic entities. And so they're looking at entities all across the country and even abroad, right? And so we initially started our study focusing primarily on Black philanthropic entities and Black foundations. But as we kind of continue to build that out, we also noticed that there are other ethnic groups and other models that we can also take learnings from. And so the one group is focusing on national entities. We have another subgroup that is focusing on local entities and local nonprofits or local foundations. And so we're really taking some learnings from them to kind of figure out how they're funding different entities, Black-led, Black-benefited nonprofits, and also trying to identify where the gaps are within the Charlotte community. And then the third subgroup is really focusing on those Black-led, Black-benefited nonprofits. So we have a team that's already looking at a couple of years ago, we did a project called the BOLD Project, where we work with the consulting group called Frontline Solutions to really get some key identifiers about what Black-led and Black-benefited nonprofits need to be sustainable, to continue to grow, and what resources they need. And so we have another subgroup that's focusing on that. So we have our national, we have our local, and then we have our Black-benefited that's doing their research. And together, we want to take all those different learnings, the research, and then come up with a real model, structure, strategies to really build out what's going to be the best thing for Charlotte, not only for today, but also in the future. Valaida also mentioned that we're also being very ambitious about the funds that we need to raise. And so we recently just had an event in June, at the end of June, called the Cookout, where we was able to raise a significant amount of money to really start that groundwork. The discovery phase that we're in right now, also want to mention, we're looking at about a 12 to 18 month period, okay? And so we already have started that. We plan to wrap up that, the first discovery phase around May of next year. And then we'll take that learning and then kind of go into some of the best practices to actually do a little bit more of the groundwork and to figure out what's the capital that needs to actually build the technological infrastructure, the staff infrastructure, and everything else that it needs to actually be sustainable within this community. So we're looking forward to the continued work that we're already starting to do, and then what's going to be ahead as well.
Yeah, thank you, Jarrell. And again, on the screen, you can access a QR code that provides you a link to our campaign package. You can read more about NGAP's history and our aspirations and hopes and vision for the new trust. The new trust, built with and for Black communities, it's an opportunity to have more authentic relationships between Black nonprofits serving our community and funders and philanthropic entities that support their work. It's an opportunity to build a brain trust of Black people and other friends and allies who know the research, have access to data, generate data, and have expertise in the philanthropic realm. And it's an opportunity to build a trust, a treasure trust, so to speak, of financial resources to strengthen the nonprofits serving our communities and have greater impact on Charlotte's community, starting with the Black community. So that's what we envisioned with the new trust. And this campaign for a new trust that we're leading over the next 2 years, yes, it's about raising dollars, but it's about raising awareness and civic and cultural pride. And part of that cultural pride that we speak of as part of our celebrating the culture while we're elevating, investing in the culture, is bringing back the soul of philanthropy. A few of you, I remember, were in the room 9 years ago in February 2025. Raise your hand if you were there. Yes. And that's when the inaugural exhibition of the Soul of Philanthropy was exhibited. So years prior, Charles Thomas and I collaborated to create the book Giving Back, and NGAP published that book. It's since gone on to become an award-winning book. It's still in demand. We're in the process of a fourth printing. And if you look on Amazon today, because it's currently out of print, last I looked, resale was going for $360. That's how hard it is to find one, that the resellers are taking advantage of that scarcity and making some money. But when we print it and have the new publication out again, 100% of sales come back to NGAP and support our work. And that's been the case all along. Giving Back is the book that gives back. And it's been central in advancing a lot of our work in the community and our community engagement. Well, 9 years ago, we had an opportunity to partner with Johnson C. Smith University to reimagine the book Giving Back as a touring museum exhibition. We received major federal funds to create what we call the Soul of Philanthropy, reframed and exhibited. It centers the stories of Black people, largely from Charlotte and the Carolinas, in how we give back, offering portraits of what Black philanthropy is, what our values are, what our beliefs are, what our traditions are that drive how we choose to give back to our communities, how generosity is part of our DNA. And we're proud that after what will be 10 years next summer, and 30 some communities across the country, from Cleveland to Chicago to Detroit to New Orleans to Atlanta and more, we're bringing the Soul of Philanthropy back to Charlotte for the Charlotte Homecoming. And I'll let fellow NGAP member Patrick Ward, who's one of the co-chairs of the Soul of Philanthropy CLT Homecoming, to share more about that.
Good morning, everybody. I am extremely excited. I am board again, along with my other co-chair, cannot be here this morning, Liz Thomas Hollier. We are excited to bring this exhibit back home. When you get a chance to do this, the reason why I'm like, let me do this, because what Valaida has done for me, reframing what Black philanthropy is and what the giving is, like she talks about, it's not just the dollars. So all of us in this room, you remember that time when you were a kid, and your mom and dad say, take this plate down to Miss Jenkins because so-and-so passed. Or your cousin may need braces, or your sister needs some help. We don't see that as philanthropy, but as Valaida told you up front, philanthropy means love. All of you did that out of love. What I've come to know and come to understand is Black people are the most giving people in the world. We do the most with what we have. And so this exhibit is a chance to really exemplify and grow that. So she is right. What started right here in 2015 has gone all across the U.S. in Black communities, everyone you can name. Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, New Orleans, wherever you've been turned up at, the Soul of Philanthropy has been there. And now it has sparked movements across the nation. And so now, a decade later, it's coming back home. So it's kind of like that kid you sent off to school, and they got this good job, and they tell you about all the great things that they've been doing, and you say, okay, so when you gonna come back home? And so now it's coming home. And it is our job to make sure that it's done big and better, because the other thing about us is we compete. So all these cities have done a lot of great things. So now the heat is on us for it to come back home and to do it right. In the spirit of HBCUs and Black cookouts, and it's time for a real homecoming. So I know we have some people in here that went to some HBCUs. I know there's a Winston State guy here. Yeah, so you know that it's important and imperative that we do it right here. And so what we plan to do as a collective is to celebrate like no other. So the coming back home will be about community engagement. It will be about that education. It will be about a celebration. And what we really want to do is three things, chair of the steering committee. One, she won't say it and he won't either, but to do honor to the work of Valaida Fullwood and Charles Thomas in giving back. That's critical. The second thing is to really build education and do things that are pertinent around what Black giving means, what it has been, celebrate what we've done, bring awareness, as she said, but also talk about issues. What does Black philanthropy look like tomorrow? What communities and what aspects do we not think about? What is Black from a religious aspect, from a youth aspect, from a real estate aspect? What does that mean? You know, and third and foremost, really be a catalyst for the new trust, so we can continue that growth, that those dollar building. Because I said it is more than money, but the money doesn't matter. And so we want to make sure that this exhibit that's going to go from July, so put it down, July to October of 2025, the Charlotte Museum of History will host the exhibition. There will be events and activities throughout the city and in the community that I would ask that you all come and engage with. Of course, steering committee always needs help. So again, as Valaida talks about those T's, if you have time, talent, treasure, please contact me. We would love to get you plugged in. I'm excited. I'm actually getting ready to go to Little Rock with her tomorrow to see how they kick it off. But please be proud and please know what has begun here has sparked a nationwide movement that will continue. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Yes, next week, no, this week, tomorrow. The Soul of Philanthropy Little Rock opens at the Mosaic Templars Cultural Center in Little Rock. So we are super excited. Patrick's going, Liz is going, Charles is going, I'm going, and we're excited. It's created a family vibe across cities. So I know some people from the last exhibit, which was in New Orleans, will be coming down to Little Rock for that. Just last week, I was in, my days run together, so I think it was last week. Yes, it was last week. I was in Cleveland, which hosted the exhibit 5 years ago, and they're still sustaining the excitement, the initiative that it sparked. And it's still going strong 5 years later. We had a sold out luncheon where we interviewed some of the local honorees, some of the local philanthropists that were celebrated during their exhibition of the Soul of Philanthropy. I also visited Akron, Ohio while I was there, which will host the Soul of Philanthropy right after the Charlotte exhibition in November 2025 through February 2026. They are super excited about hosting it. I was invited to be a featured speaker at a luncheon at LeBron James's Family Foundation. And again, a sold out audience of nearly 300 people to talk about Black philanthropy and about the Soul of Philanthropy, the exhibit, but also just the phenomena, the possibilities and power of Black giving. So we're super excited, proud, gratified that a project we started 16 years ago has taken off in the way that it has, and it's grown and expanded in the ways that it has generated millions of dollars for Black communities across this country, has instilled new pride and awareness of our giving that not only do people outside the Black community take for granted more often than not, but Black people take for granted. I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard things like Black people don't give or we don't support one another. And I think our giving is so central to who we are and integral that it's become invisible. We swim in it all the time and don't even see it like a fish in the water. And when you illuminate it and talk about it and give examples of what it looks like among us, people have a real sense of pride and recognition that their grandma was a philanthropist. They are a philanthropist. You have the potential to be a philanthropist by leaning into our traditions. You don't have to win the lottery. You don't have to be a professional athlete. You don't have to be a corporate exec. You can give what you have to make an impact in your way. And that's the beauty of it all. And I think it's a secret power among Black people that we totally underestimate. That American rugged individualism is not our thing. So just FYI, don't get it twisted. We lean into community, into our connections to us, and what we can do, not only for us, but to benefit the broader community. So as you can see, I get excited about talking about Black philanthropy and want to pause and I suppose open it up for questions. All right.
Okay, first question usually comes from Tommy Robinson.
Yeah,
Wait.
my question is, I've been studying the Black community for years. Are we losing property and assets? Are we gaining? Because I know my grandfather had 127 acres of land, and we don't have any of that now. We talk, but we don't have the assets. Are we losing? Are we gaining? Where are the Black communities? I remember they had so many in Charlotte, now we don't have any. So are we losing or are we gaining?
Yeah, I'll admit that's something I don't know, but it's an excellent question and something for us to explore. Or I don't know, Sharice, in your work, do you have data or knowledge on that?
I can just share, like anecdotally, we know that there is a Black home ownership gap. We know that there's a deficit in assets, both, wealth building assets as well as like real estate and such, which also is a wealth building asset for Black and brown people. So it would appear that we may be losing some assets. However, I do think that there are efforts in place where we are working to try to regain some of those assets, but the very real reality is that, and I try to raise that, we're constantly and consistently at a competitive disadvantage because as we're trying to regain our assets, we are competing with hedge funds, corporate landlords, all these other groups that have blank, checks that and fast moving fluid capital that is more difficult for grassroots groups to be able to access. But I think that also speaks to the power of what NGAP is trying to do here, the power of social capital, because as we work together, then hopefully we can continue to move towards regaining some of those assets.
Okay, I
I
have
think
a
I
question.
one thing to that. Professionally, I work in the wealth management space. And so one of the things I will also say is that some of our assets may be more diversified now. And so they may not always look as in land and real estate as if some of the pillars were, maybe if some of our forefathers were. But obviously, the Black community is earning more, but that doesn't necessarily translate to assets as well. And so just as NGAP has the responsibility to bring awareness around philanthropy, it's also important for us to build awareness around just financial education and wealth building as well, and what that looks like in that there's a lot of different ways to build wealth, right? And so in wealth, it's just not a number. And so that's one of the things I want to kind of dispel is people can always put a different number, but wealth is really about how you define it, just like success is how you define it. And so that could be based on whatever type of retirement that you envision, whatever type of legacy that you envision, whatever type of lifestyle you envision. And so there's a lot of ways to define wealth, but there is a piece of education that we have to continue to provide to our community about what are the different ways to build wealth, right? So there could be using the stock market. It could be using land, right? So there's just a lot of different ways to kind of bring education to that space.
Also, point of clarity, for Jay Hill and I, we're from West Boulevard. When you say you're going to Little Rock, you mean Arkansas?
That would be correct. I would also say on the wealth conversation that history, it's, for Black people, we've had to build wealth while also building a society. So we've had to run businesses and simultaneously invest in philanthropic causes. It's just, again, part of Black philanthropy, that it's not get rich and then start giving back. You're doing it all simultaneously. You're working, making a living, building wealth, while also looking ways to strengthen our communities and our society.
Okay, my question is to Sharice. Can you talk to us a little bit more about land trust and the steps that are that you take to be engaged in understanding land trust and how it works?
Yes, absolutely. So the community land trust model is one that is rooted in shared economics, shared equity, collective and community wealth building. And so essentially through the land trust model, we host something called CLT 101. So if anybody is interested, that's an 1.5-hour long session where we go into the details and the nuances of the model and how we're able to create perpetual affordability. But just high level, essentially what we do is we acquire real estate assets, we permanently and perpetually preserve them, and we return them to community use in the way that neighbors envision for themselves. So our organization was founded to create staying power through affordable home ownership. Although we have morphed as we have become responsive to what neighbors have access to do, but when looking at home ownership, we acquire land, we then develop a home, we sell that home based on income, and we sell the house, the improvement itself, not the land. The community always owns and controls the land, and then we put them on a ground lease. And so they're able to own that home, have access to that home, have access to the land forever and ever. But when they go to sell, there's a resale formula that exists to ensure that that home is affordable to the next buyer. And so it allows it to be affordable today, tomorrow, in 100 years, and 200 and 300 years. So we already always have space in place within our communities. We leverage that same model for other types of developments like apartments and such, where neighbors can decide they want us to preserve a piece of land, but they want to have some power and some control as to what that looks like and how that happens. We then place the developer on a ground lease, and we put terms in place that community members want. So use the model to reclaim a vacant school. So we're acquiring the school. Neighbors wanted to turn that school into a co-op. They wanted to have access to a restaurant, an urban farm, all of that. So we use the model to acquire that space, preserve it, and then we transfer ownership of the improvement to that cooperative structure. So essentially that's the long answer for it. The land trust can show up in a way to preserve real estate assets, whether it be residential, rental home ownership, commercial, urban green spaces, through a ground lease model that ensures that we always have access. It's never being sold. Does that make sense?
So I'm not on the panel, but I think I can share a perspective on the are we losing or are we gaining wealth perspective. And I don't have data in front of me. I was trying to find it. But here is some anecdotal evidence. So in my dealings as a banker, there are two things that are happening in the Black community around land. It's around asset protection and asset appreciation. And we're losing in both of those. We're losing in asset protection because we don't have our documents in order when we die. And it's time to pass that on. Oftentimes it gets tied up. And when it gets tied up, somebody's watching how your family's dysfunctional and they can't get their act together. And the next thing you know, you wake up and your property has been taken from up underneath you and you didn't even know. Because there are people going down to the courthouse on a regular. And I'm learning that's because when it's time for us to do a mortgage, we start to see who has claims to that. And oftentimes people don't even realize that there is claims to your property that you don't even know. which actually makes it a little bit more difficult for that wealth to actually be transferred. So that's one of the things that is happening. The other is around asset appreciation. Sometimes we don't know how valuable what we own, and we get caught up in the emotional aspect of what we own. And I've seen this happen where properties, we know that in banking, properties are only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And what happens is somebody wants your property and they say, I will give you $2 million for it. But because we know granddad built that property, we don't want to sell it at all for $2 million. And we know that can be life-changing for us. But then we walk away, and then we walk away and do nothing. Then we're subject to code enforcement because we've let the property get so dilapidated, the value that someone once saw in it is no longer there. But because we got caught up in our emotions and we didn't really understand economics and how this could help us to accumulate wealth and have a say-so in what happens, we miss out. And so that is what I would share. So that's back to Jarrell, right? Comment around education. We got to know what we own and what it's worth and how to protect it.
Here's property is predatory now. We got to But anyway, I'm sorry.
Thank you, and you definitely should be one of our panelists up here this morning. And we'd like for you to, thank you, really, but we'd like for you to ask your questions and direct them to the person that you'd like to direct them to, and let them answer the questions. But thank you for that information. Go ahead.
Good morning, panelists. My name is April Benson, and I'm a community organizer, also coordinator for SHIELD, Sisters Helping in Education, Leadership, and Development. I'm also the community engagement chair for the African American Caucus of North Carolina Democratic Party. Do you all have a mailing list or newsletter that you all do monthly or weekly or whatever, so that way, because you're talking about some really good stuff, but how can we engage with you to keep the process going?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. We do have a website, ngaap.org, that you can follow some of our work and articles. We also have e-communique that we send out periodically. I can't say, because we are volunteer-led and driven, I can't say it's weekly or monthly, but we do try roughly every 6 weeks at least. In August, more frequently, because it is Black Philanthropy Month. But you can contact us via ngaap.org or find our contact information, and we'll put you on our mailing list. Thank you.
All right, we have a question from an online viewer, Faith Triggs of Habitat Charlotte. She asked, what are you seeing from Black youth concerning giving, and how are we to get them engaged younger?
Yes, we get this question often. So one thing I'd say is when we launched the Soul of Philanthropy with Johnson C. Smith in 2015, we learned that the youth often don't have the baggage about philanthropy and giving back that Black adults do. So it's not a hard case to make on how to give back. Many of us are laden with these false notions about our level of wealth we have to have before we can give back, or who's a philanthropist, or who's giving matters. And they just see the issues and see an opportunity for us to do something. And I think along with just that inherent desire to contribute and be a part of a community, it's also important for adults to show the way, to educate and help in the formation of young Black philanthropists in how we choose to give, in, again, centering it around love and not about wealth. And there's an opportunity there. I've seen some youth giving circles formed where, much like NGAP, but giving smaller amounts where young people can pull their dollars and give back. I'll also add that with college-age students, with our initial grant funding with the Soul of Philanthropy, we designed the exhibit to appeal across generations. So when the exhibit is in a city, it's an opportunity for schools, K-12 on up, to engage and begin reframing what philanthropy is and showing us as Black people as givers. So through the Soul Philanthropy exhibit and some of the community programming that we do with schools provides opportunities to start young and to engage with young people in interactive ways around giving back.
And to that point, when you look at when the exhibit comes back next year, some of that programming and some of that awareness will be around what does the next generation of giving looks like? What are younger generations doing? Because there are a ton of young people that are doing a ton of work. And I'm talking high school, college age, early workforce. You see younger folks now, they ask that questions when they go into a company, like, what do you give to? Like, so there is a thought of giving, and you will see a lot of folks who do a lot of great work, and it is our job to highlight, like, what's next. Like, you know, Valaida, again, you know, doing this for 20 years, who's going to come behind us, who's going to continue to carry that. So that programming will be integral in what we get done.
Hey, good morning. Thank you all for being here. Hey, Sharice. Hey, Valaida. I want to kind of target this question for you both. So my parents, like Winston mentioned, live on West Boulevard. Relative to the project that is on West Boulevard that's just completed, my parents would have loved to not have known or understood that there was a way that they could contribute to that, right? They're definitely at that age where they're thinking about, you know, their legacy and how they can contribute, right? And can you talk about how we can understand how to position ourselves to understand projects like the one on West Boulevard or giving overall, Valaida, and say, hey, I want to be intentional about where my dollars go, and how they can get informed early on to be able to make that decision?
So I think that's a really good question. And to be completely honest, I have not done a good job of necessarily asking neighbors to make investments into projects, because I feel that community members have continued to invest in their neighborhoods over time and solve problems and challenges that they didn't create. And so I have not done well with saying, make an investment here in order to continue your legacy, because I feel the work that we are doing is what we should be doing. And the onus shouldn't be on the neighbors. But I do think that it's critically important to make sure that we're sharing what is happening. We were actually asked to be a part of that project. So it was the West Boulevard Neighborhood Coalition that came to us and said, you know, this property is under contract by an out-of-state developer. We're not okay with it. We want to own it. We want to have some say-so as far as what happens. And so we continue to engage with the coalition to execute the community benefits agreement and to enter into negotiations. And so we largely were presenting at their meetings and using that platform. But I do think that in the future, we want to be sure that we are engaging neighbors at a more like grassroots, individualized way, where we're canvassing communities or sending out newsletters and just making sure that the information that we have and the projects that we're working on is more accessible to neighbors. And so I think that's an area where we can do a better job of making sure that longtime residents are aware of what's happening, so that they then have the option to be able to get involved and continue their legacy however they see fit. And that could be through financial contributions. It could be through shared knowledge and experience, because your parents know West Boulevard better than I do, or better than, you know, a developer does. And so just kind of sharing that knowledge as well. Or it could be through the creation and cultivation of future solutions along the corridor. So I think there's an opportunity to cultivate something there.
I would just say, whatever your interest, this is just general advice I offer people when they ask about getting engaged philanthropically, whether they're already giving and want to scale up, or whether they're just beginning their philanthropy journey. And I always say, you know, check yourself, reflect on your history, your autobiography with giving and philanthropy, what really matters to you. So this connection to neighborhood and community where you break your family and you feel really rooted and connected. You have a vision. You have a vision for what you want to see going forward and your legacy. Then learn about what's happening, having an impact in that area, and inquire about how you might invest in that work. That there's no secret sauce or a single issue. I mean, with Black communities, there are a range of issues and concerns, but tap into what matters to you, whether it's around culture and the arts, if it's around education, if it's around economic development, if it's around health issues, if it's around climate and environmental issues, whatever it is, check yourself on what has shaped who you are, where your values are, what really matters to you, and then find out who's doing that work and having an impact in Black communities, and educate yourself on how you can give and have an impact in that realm.
I will say this related to what Valaida just said. One of the things that I really love about NGAP is that we're about outcome, not ego. Right? Everybody wants to, I want to start something. But I guarantee you, whatever issue you have, somebody's doing that same work. To the point of we are a community. So if we can come together and do things, like I can tell you at least 10 groups right now that's trying to work on mentoring you, whether it's Black girls or Black boys. It just takes the collective power of all those came together. But sometimes I want it to be called the Patrick Ward Association for Young Men, instead of saying, let me join the 100 Black Men, let me go do YBLA or whatever it is to bring that collective power together. We always do better when we come together. I've never been to an in-gathering meeting where it's like, well, let me make sure that I do X, Y, Z. And I thank her later because she's like, yeah, all that sounds good, but what are we doing? Like, what are we getting done? And there are groups out here that are doing tremendous work. You name it, is getting done. Applesauce group. Tremendous, brother.
I appreciate it.
People are doing things. If we get together with them, we can make stuff happen. But I guarantee you, what I love about Black people is whatever issue is, I can guarantee somebody's there doing the work. We can just help. We all do a little, nobody has to do a lot.
So I have a question. Just kind of in the same vein. What would a template look like? Let's say in my household, my wife is an alumnus of 3 different HBCUs. We have church, we have family, we have a lot of things we care about, we love to support. But on the other side of that, Lord, it's a lot going out. Yeah. So, like, what would that look like to just establish a template, or is there a tool that we can use to understand this is a way to give without exhausting yourself and still support things, or, what does that look like?
Well, I don't know if there's a single template, but one approach you might consider is at the start of the year, come together as a family. And again, this is something you can do with young people and children, and set your priorities, write it down. What you're involved with, what membership fees or what contributions that you are committed to, whether it's tithing or annual membership gifts that you make, and kind of what's set, and set that schedule. I mean, be aware at the start of the year on what it is you have to give and where you are committed to give, and if there's room for more discretionary giving to other charitable causes, then make a commitment to that cause or that specific organization. And one really powerful thing that people underestimate is regular giving. So small amounts, but on a monthly basis. So whether it's given $15 to a nonprofit and setting it up to pay on a monthly basis, that is really useful to organizations and can make a huge difference. And again, folks underestimate that, but if during the course of the year you committed to giving $200 to a specific nonprofit and have broken that out monthly or quarterly or when you get paid, it's just reliable revenue coming in to support that organization.
Yeah, I have a problem because I read a lot about American history. They put Indians on Indian reservation until the lady come up. If you look at gambling casinos besides Las Vegas, they're on Indian reservation because they use the reservation as an asset. Do we have any assets that we can use like the American Indians use? Like if you go to a gambling casino, you go into an Indian reservation. If you go to North Carolina, Cherokee. And then that's all over America, New York, so on. So do we have anything, any assets that we can use to form a group, whatever, in America? Because we had 6 to 8 million acres of land. Now we have less than 21 million. So how can you consider that progress?
Yeah. Reparations.
Yeah, well, I would
Reparations casinos.
definitely want to let you go, but the points you make, I understand, but I would also, I'm pretty sure you know that, reservation land grants that were given to Native Americans weren't given to Black folks, and then we were also systematically redlined out of acquiring things. And there was the same government that gave Native American land and all that, the same one that said Black people aren't allowed to own this or aren't allowed to own this land. So the starting line, and I don't know if that's apples to apples comparison to begin with, but
We had 6 to 8 million acres.
I would just add that we absolutely do have assets. I think similar to Love, as he had mentioned earlier, is how we define it. In some communities, we've seen with physical assets like land, where the land that, residents do own, they're willing to leverage that. So they want to put ADUs, tiny houses on their land to create another unit of affordability. That's a way that we're able to leverage their asset. It also comes back to like assets that may not be physical like land, but just knowledge. We have the knowledge, we have skills that we can bank and we can use to be able to create solutions. I think it's also a component of that is also reclamation. Like, how do we organize our communities? There's several historically Black neighborhoods where there are large populations of Black people that do own their homes. How do we leverage that power to make demands? And how do we then create plans and leverage that to demonstrate what it is that we desire for ourselves, like putting pressure on the school board or on the county to release surplus land or release surplus schools to forego an upset bid process or whatever else, so that we can reclaim those assets and turn them into economic drivers within our community. Like, we do have the ability to dream, and we do have the ability to make our dreams real. And I think that that's an asset that exists beyond just a physical asset.
And I would say one of the biggest. I would say one of the biggest ownership trends that I see in the Black community is with businesses. So where a lot of ownership, where people are putting their thought process and their assets behind dollars, is trying to build their own companies. And then leveraging entrepreneurship as a way for their entrepreneurship or their wealth building track. And then obviously, hopefully, if we can, there's many Black businesses, probably one of the fastest growing sectors in our countries. Hopefully, if we can, collective like NGAP is doing, support Black businesses put dollars back into the community. Hopefully that can have a trickle down effect where we obviously be able to then own more land, but it doesn't solve your problem as you mentioned right now with where we're at right now and where we've kind of gone. But hopefully we can reverse that trend by taking the ownership of being business owners and having an ownership mindset, no matter even if we're working as an employee, thinking about, okay, what other ways is there that I can, diversify my wealth building? I think that's the real trend where we have to focus.
Good morning. When I moved to Charlotte a little over 20 years ago, there were so many services that I needed. And what I turned to was Angie's List, which is now just called Angie's. And it was all types of services with business listed. And the advantage to it was that everyone that used one of the services would leave a comment about how good the service was. So when I called someone, I make sure they knew that I was on Angie's list, and if they did a bad job, I'd give them a bad review. And if they did a good job, I'd give them a good review. That gave me some leverage, because I'm totally new here, I certainly don't know the businesses. I would love to see that for Black businesses, because I certainly would have preferred to hire everyone Black. Since you seem to know a lot about businesses in Charlotte, do you know if anything like that exists, or is it possible to build one? Just a database of Black businesses, and then with that same type of leave comments that we know when they're vet them to make sure they're all Black businesses.
I will defer to somebody else who might know specifically about Black businesses, but when it comes to Black-led, Black-founded nonprofits, in terms of resources, services offered to community, mentorship programs, other opportunities, as well as where you can invest your philanthropic dollars, that is some of the work of NGAP. In 2020, as part of the BOLD Project research, we identified over 300 Black-led, Black-founded nonprofits serving Charlotte. And a lot of Black people don't even know these groups exist, particularly with the influx of so many newcomers and the how spread out we are as a community. So part of the work of the new trust is creating infrastructure and leveraging technology so that people can tap into these Black-led nonprofits and support their work. I mentioned they're on the front lines doing the work, but they're off the radar, and people don't know they're there, or that they have services that their family can benefit from, or where they can invest their dollars. So we want to elevate the presence of these backbone organizations in our community that do so much with so little through our work with the new trust and what we hope to bring to the community. On the business front, does somebody know of a particular
I'm not sure of any directory, but I know like in Pride magazine, they typically a lot of times will have in the back of the magazine will have a list of different Black-led businesses that maybe can be a resource to you, because they will have different, industry sectors and things like that have Black different businesses within Pride magazine.
And I would just add that I think that your point resonates with me, and I think that it demonstrates that there's an opportunity maybe to build a more robust system, because when you asked that, I just started thinking, well, what do I use? And there are all these ad hoc resources, there's an Instagram list, and Q City Metro has a list, Pride has a list, you can go to Share Charlotte to learn about, there's all these things that exist, but is there a centralized place where we can go, like an Angie's list, but for the Black community and Black vendors? And so I think that presents an opportunity of something that could be cultivated and created, because it also is challenging for small businesses, grassroots nonprofits who don't have a large marketing budget to put our name out as frequently as other groups do. And so I do think that there's an opportunity where maybe through some collective means, there can be more of a centralized hub or space to be able to raise awareness on these vendors, to your point.
On social media, there's Black business owners of Charlotte Marketplace. They have a Facebook group. You can follow them. They used to have a website. I don't know if it's still up and going, but it kind of gives you folks say, I need a Black person that does this, this, and this. People give you know, one thing about us is if we don't like something, Reggie came to my house, this is number, this is what we go screenshot and share. I don't need here because the dress don't look right, the back and share. So you will see that. But to your point, there's BBOC. I will check now and see if I can get you to make sure their website is up. But social media is a place where we tend to share our thoughts of who did what.
All right, well, I don't have a question per se, but I want to take a point of privilege. Feeling like we're with family here at the Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Forum, and it's Black Philanthropy Month.
Now, we got a streaming audience as well. I just want to know that.
Okay, yes, okay. So I'll accelerate. May I make my comment? Okay. Got it, yeah. So, yeah, I know the family watching and tuning in. So, one of the things I mentioned with Black Philanthropy, speaking our truth and testimony, is one of the things, and I'm not sitting well with the state of affairs in Black philanthropy or philanthropy in Charlotte, with the anti-DEI movement, with some of the pushback and anti-Blackness and the Fearless Fund lawsuit, really pushing back on giving explicitly to Black groups, even though the data says we are underfunded, underinvested in, whether it's in business or whether it's in the philanthropic realm. In 2020, in the wake of the pandemic, a national report came out that indicated that our community foundation, Foundation for the Carolinas, out of the $500 million that goes out in grants annually, 0.5% went to identifiably Black organizations. 0.5% in a city that's a third Black, going to Black founded, Black led nonprofits. And while the anecdotes from Black nonprofit leaders and executive directors over the years speaking to the underfunding and under-resourcing, I'd heard, finally I saw a figure and some research data to back up those stories that we all live and know and experience. And that didn't sit well with me or fellow NGAP members. And while things might have improved, I haven't seen data on the level of giving, but I know in the wake of the pandemic, folks stepped up and removed some of the barriers and some of the hoops that have been required, and limited access to some of those dollars were loosened up. I also note that with the recent change of leadership a month or two ago, I noted that the new CEO named an all-white 11-person executive team. Again, in a city that is a quarter or a third Black. And I just have questions. I mean, really, in 2024, and having worked with the foundation, having our fund at the foundation, am aware that never in its history has that ceiling been broached. There has never been a Black executive at this prominent philanthropic entity in our community that boasts assets of over $4 billion. And so representation matters, speaking our truths matter, and what we experience on the ground, I think, can be anticipated or even expected when you look at the demographic makeup and apparently the value system that exists in that prominent philanthropic entity. And it's just something on my mind that I feel compelled to speak about because I don't think it's right. The foundation was established in 1958. 1958, as I remind people, my North Carolina born and bred parents couldn't go to school with white children, couldn't drink out of a white water fountain. Clemson wouldn't admit Harvey Gantt in 1958. All that's changed, but our community foundation has not. And I think that has set a certain culture and expectation in our philanthropic realm that has been allowed to persist. It feels strategic, almost nostalgic in the worst ways. And it's just something I think more of us need to be aware of. And maybe you haven't been studying this the way I have, but want to bring it to your attention and bring it out into the public realm.
It's April again, so I have another question. My question is, well, first of all, I want to make a quick comment. Sometimes we never show up at the table, and a lot of time our people, they'd rather be at home than to be out trying to make sure that they're doing what's necessary. So we won't have one Black person, CEO, or whatever you just mentioned. So we got to start engaging our people to do more. Because like right now, we just may have our first Black woman, no matter what she try to call herself, as the President of the United States. We need to be pushing her, especially as women, because that orange man get in there, Black women, we are doing it, because he mad with everybody. But my question is, and I could have missed it, and it could have went over my head, that you're wanting support for what you're doing in the community, which is, I think is awesome. And how many of your mom and pop organization that you are supporting, that you're helping to raise funding for?
Yes, we support folks, nonprofits in our community with grants annually. We award around $20,000. So in the scheme of things, it's, you know, not massive amounts, but it can have massive impact, as Sharice shared earlier with our grant award to her organization in 2020. And in addition to the dollars we give, we bring together nonprofits. So every Black Philanthropy Month and periodically throughout the year, we bring together 50 to 100 Black nonprofit leaders who, again, are so busy operating their mom and pop organizations, they don't often have time to connect and collaborate and learn about each other, or just relax in a safe space and share some of the challenges that they have, or promote some of the opportunities they see out there. So in terms of dollars, we grant to roughly 3 to 4 organizations a year. They are small nonprofits. We have a niche, if you will, in terms of Black led, Black founded, operating budget under $500,000. Those who lead boldly. Bold for us means Black organizations leading differently. So being innovative, being out of the box, introducing new ideas, being creative in how they're addressing issues. That's what we're looking to invest in. And even with our small dollars, our members give a minimum of $365 a year to be a member. People sometimes think there's some elaborate process or review or selection to be a member of NGAP, but it's really committing that $365, $1 a day, to be a member and to say, I want to be involved. I mean, you can give to us and not become a member, which we welcome and which occurs, thank goodness. But we're proud of the 80-some folks who stepped in and say, I want to be a part of this work. I want to contribute. I want to learn together with you. I want to create solutions together with fellow Black people. And I want to be a member of the NGAP. So we're excited what we can do with that 365. If you have more to give, folks give more when they can. And we've been able to do remarkable things. In the course of 18 years, we've generated over $1.6 million to benefit Charlotte's Black community and to lift up our culture of giving.
Oh, no, and what I was gonna say about NGAP and what I've really come to enjoy, to what Valaida was saying, like, you know, the money's okay, the money's cool, but it's the services and the support that comes with it. If you have a gap in grant writing, or you need some marketing help, if we have the expertise in-house, or if we know how to get that to you, to those mom and pops, we will, because we know the dollar, you know, I will tell you this, like, when you get a scholarship, like I got one to go to college, you know, $10,000 a year, great. But when Ms. Jenkins from up the road gave me that card with that $5 in it, when somebody gives you, and you know she's on the fixed income, and she only has so much to give you, that $5 just ain't $5. That's her saying, I don't have much, but I want to invest in you because I believe in you. I know what you can do. So sometimes it may not just be, yeah, the scholarship was great, but I'm always remember that card, or either when she give you that little hand, shake your hand, you.
Do we have more questions, or we're out of time?
Karen has a question.
Okay, we need to keep it short. We're almost out of time.
Oh, yes, we go.
With respect to what you mentioned about the foundation board, is there something that we can do about that? And also, is there something community members can do to be involved with the West Boulevard Land Trust?
I will say my point was in regard to the leadership, staff leadership, not the board. There are Black members of the board, and Black men have served as board chairs, but in terms of the staff, I think nearly 50, give or take, members of that staff with the executive team level, there's never been a Black person. They have people of color, Black people on the staff level, but not in executive leadership, which is significant. I don't know how for 50 some years that has been able to persist, or 60 some years that's been able to persist. But I think it starts, I don't have that answer. I don't think this comment or bring that awareness is meant to cue some window dressing of a Black executive. But I think it speaks to deeper work, institutional work internally for the organization, and new expectations from our community and a new lens from our community in terms of representation at such a significant philanthropic institution in Charlotte.
And I was just going to add that I think it's also representative of the need for systems disruption, because although that is the reality for our community foundation, I think that's just a symbol of how that continues to persist throughout our larger community. And I will say, as a leader of a Black resident-led nonprofit, it is challenging to get the resources you need when there are systems that exist that do strategically prevent you from accessing those resources. And so I really see NGAP, and I see their membership, and I see the collective as a way to disrupt that system, create some accessibility, and give opportunity to those groups that otherwise don't have it. It's not just our community foundation, but Arts and Science Council came out with an apology letter. I mean, if we start looking into who's funded through the city, I mean, there's all of this red tape that exists that keeps Black and brown people and grassroots groups from doing great reparative work. And so I think really it's about being intentional about investments. We need funds, they need funds, and large funds. So Valaida has done an amazing job raising $1.6 million. And she also mentioned that Foundations for the Carolinas has assets that are at the $4 billion level. So how can we be more intentional? How can other funders, Black aligned or whoever else that has funding, be more intentional about the size of investments that they're making and where they're putting those funds? Because we need groups like NGAP to have access to billions in funding to be able to make more equitable investments.
This culture, that data is why NGAP is now leading the campaign for the new trust. We see the need, we see a huge vacuum that exists in terms of leadership and advocating, and in terms of financial resources to build up and strengthen Black-led foundations. So that's our opportunity and how we're leveraging it to have greater impact. Because doing this as volunteers, the issue, the problem is too big to expect a volunteer group to have sustainable impact.
We'd like to say thank you all so much. This has been really good information that's been shared with us and our audience this morning. And we don't want to hold you, but we do like to let you know that we appreciate you. And 10 years from now, when you come back and you all have come up with that, the billions being the billionaires club, I probably won't be here, but what's the real? But thank you all so much. We've had some good questions, and you all have been very clear about your information that you shared with us. And as April has asked, whatever we can do, just let us know. We have a different audience almost every Tuesday, but thank you all so much. I had another question I'm just going to ask you when we close out, but we'd like to get announcements. So if any of you have announcements that you'd like to make quickly, we would take those, and then we would take announcements from our audience. But let's give them a round of applause. I'm going to say we applaud you all more than we usually applaud everybody, because you've been saying something, give a shit with us information this morning. I appreciate it. You all have captured us this morning.
Friday license.
Go ahead.
August Black Philanthropy Month. August 28th, big Trying to Give is Black. So find the nonprofits you believe in, give to them. Go to ngap.org. Check us out. And then most importantly, Solar Philanthropy Homecoming Exhibit 2025, July to October. Please tell somebody. More information coming soon, but at least come by, see the exhibit, have a good time, and go try to figure out some food of it, and then let you know.
Now, where do you say it's gonna be?
The Charlotte Museum of History.
Okay.
So please come, check us out. It's gonna be a great time.
Okay, announcements.
With that said, Black-led Charlotte nonprofit Applesauce Group will be having its flagship festival of Alcohol Fresh on Saturday, September 21st at West Complex. But check this out. It's from 6 to 8. We're having a closing show in which we collaborate with the symphony. I had DJ Butterfingers play a club set. Then Harvey Cummings transcribed it and arranged it for symphonic parts. So we're going to have an oratorio of trap music. It will be an amazing show. Incredible. Saturday, September 21st at West Complex.
It's hard to follow that. On Tuesday, September 10th, the Redress Movement, the local Redress Movement, is hosting Lineages of Displacement, Legacies of Power. It will be at 6:30 at the Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. Redress Movement locally is led by Greg Darrell, who wrote Our Trespasses, White Churches and the Taking of American Neighborhoods, which is the story of the Brooklyn neighborhood dismantling. So I invite you all to come to that.
This Saturday, August 24th, the Leonard Westbrook's Library, we're doing Charlotte Lit Fest. We have an author coming through with her book called Tiara's Hat Parade. I invite you guys to all come out. My brother's Keeper, Grooming Greatness, the library, and Charlotte Children's Theater of Charlotte are all participating in this wonderful event. We'll see you on Beatty's Ford Saturday, 12 to 2.
This is kind of an announcement. First, I want to say congratulations to Winston Robinson, who will be honored by Dream Key Partners for his amazing work here in Charlotte. Give it up. Couldn't have given me the mic. But also, I want to say this really quickly. Valaida, everyone may not understand how courageous what you just said was. But I want to say I see you and I hear you and I understand and I commend you for your strength and your boldness in this moment to say what you just said. To that
That ain't the first time. That it? Any more announcements? All right.
It's not about nobody going nowhere, but what I need. She'll have a clothes closet at 5415 Equipment Drive. You have nice clothing, stuff that you wanted. We get ready to go into the phone, and it's for women that are in transition. We do accept some kids' clothes, but as women are, they're getting their lives back. So please contact me. My email address is abenson102020@gmail.com or shieldforwomen@gmail.com. I don't use it that much, so I don't remember that. But please, if you have the clothing finna go into in the fall, we need jackets, decent clothing for our women and undergarments. Thank you.
All right, any other announcements, please send them to sjohnston at sarahstevensontuesdayforum.org. Thank you, panel. Again, Tuesday Morning Forum happens every week. Please join us again next week as we have an amazing guest. You know who it is? Come back and find out. Next week. Every week, y'all. Thank y'all for coming. Dr. Thomas, play us out.
Moving on up, huh? Please, Philanthropy.